How's it going, Rogues Gallery, and welcome to another Flesh and Blood video. Today we have another Flesh and Blood deck tech featuring one of the most fan favorite, is that even a thing, most fan favorite? The hero that is the most fan favorite out of all of the new Monarch heroes, Prism. I have my classic Rebecca Gay box here. Man, wouldn't it be so sweet if Flesh and Blood hired Rebecca Gay to do some art? Man, that would be so sweet. But I put this in a, one of my classic personal boxes because I really like this deck. This is a big angel aggro deck. As you can see, I kind of made the deck box in theme there. Big angel aggro. It's kind of like a Luminaris deck. We're gonna have a lot of yellow pitch cards. We're gonna have a lot of go again and a lot of attack power. As always, I will have a deck list in the description down below. And also, today's video is brought to you by FAB, the premier Flesh and Blood database and deck building website. It's the website that I personally use to build my decks, and it's the one that, I have a link in the description down below to today's deck list using FAB, so definitely check them out. If you'd like to support me and also get some cool Flesh and Blood cards and maybe some other stuff too, check out my various affiliate links in the description down below. Fab Foundry, local to me in the Portland, Oregon area, Red Rat Games from Canada, and of course, Channel Fireball. Using any of those affiliate links and purchasing something will, support me. Or if you'd like to support me directly, go to my Patreon. We have some rewards there where I give like cards and packs back to you. But any of the tiers will give you access to the Red Zone Rogue community Discord. I post in there almost every single day, so, check it out. It's a lot of fun. But without further ado, let's get started with today's deck tech, a Prism Big Angel Beats deck. Let's do it. All right, so here we go with my Prism Blitz deck tech. You can see the close-up of this beautiful Rebecca Gay deck box that I've had since I was a kid. Man, this is a little bit old, maybe older than some of the people watching this video, which is actually kind of funny. But yeah, let's just get started. We are using a Dorinthia playmat here because I do not have a Prism playmat. Maybe someday. This deck it's a fairly expensive deck if you just look at all the cards for what they are, but you can actually make it into a pretty budget build, especially if you want to cut back on a lot of the equipment here, because the equipment is where most of the money is going to go. We have a Fyendel Spring Tunic, we have Phantasmal Footsteps, but you can kind of make some tweaks here to make it into a more budget list. But like I said, I'm going full. This is not a budget build. We're going all the way here. So let's take the deck out. And we'll talk about it. We'll probably start off talking about the equipment first, which is pretty important, right? It's pretty important. So yeah, let's start talking about the equipment first, and then we'll go into like the deck proper. One of the things I want to talk about most is this Vestige of Soul, but we'll talk about that just in a second. So first up, I run the Arcanite Skull Cap. You'll see this in a lot of my decks. It's just a really, really fantastic defensive piece. And as you can see here, we do not actually have a lot of defensive pieces in our equipment loadout. Our deck is actually blocked decently well. Most of the cards block for 3, but just having a piece of equipment that can block is very, very good. If you don't know what this does, it's a generic equipment, has 1 defense, it has Battle Worn, and if you have less life than your opponent, it gets +1 defense and Arcane Barrier 3. So that's pretty good. So it can more or less block for 3 total, and also has some Arcane Barrier on there if you need it. Let's talk about the Dream Weavers next. This is a must-have inclusion for the deck because we are running big angels and we're running, phantasms and all that kind of stuff, and this card is definitely pivotal for that. So it's a common card, so you can have it, buy it for 25 cents or whatever. It says action, destroy Dreamweavers. The next Illusionist attack action card you play this turn loses and can't gain Phantasm. Go again, and also has Spell Void 1, which is okay. It's okay, that can come up. But we really want to save this for a turn where we're going to play a big Phantasm, attacking for like 12, 13, that kind of stuff. And you'll pop your Dreamweavers and go in, because we're playing Blitz. We're playing Blitz. The life totals are pretty low, and if you can attack for at least 12, man, that's a big swing. That's a big swing. So Dreamweavers are very, very important into this deck, or in this deck. Another card that's very, very important. This is probably the most important legendary card in the deck. Phantasmal Footsteps. I would highly recommend picking up one of these if you can. It's a very expensive card, but maybe when Unlimited comes out, it'll be a little bit cheaper. So this is the Illusionist leg equipment. It is a beautiful, beautiful card. It is a legendary, and it says, the first time an illusionist attack action you control is destroyed each turn, you may pay a resource. If you do, gain 1 action point. So this is insurance on our big angels being destroyed, and then we can, you know, spend a resource and gain an action point and still be able to do what we want to do. It also says, whenever you defend with Phantasmal Footsteps, you may pay a resource. If you do, its defense becomes 1 until end of turn. If it defends a non-illusionist attack with 6 or more, destroy it. Yeah, we definitely don't want to destroy our Phantasmal Footsteps, so I rarely block with this, if at all. But you can block this like against really small attacks. It's actually pretty good against Ninja. You know, coming in with the Kodachis, you can block at least one of them. So yeah, that's pretty good. And then we also have the Fyendel Spring Tunic. So I think this is the best choice for the chess piece in this particular build of the deck. We'll talk about the Vestige of Soul and why I don't think it's that great. But the Spring Tunic is just a classic card. And it says at the start of your turn, if it has less than 3 energy counters, you put an energy counter on it. And for an instant effect, remove 3 energy counters, create a resource. It also has 1 defense and Blade Break. And it's just fantastic, man. It's just absolutely fantastic. Getting that extra resource is so good because it also pairs very well with the Phantasmal Footsteps. Another beautiful card. Look at these beautiful cards. And you can just bank that resource for whenever you need to use the Footsteps to give your to gain a resource when your attack is destroyed. So these synergize very, very well, actually. I know the Tunic is not typically used in Blitz, but in this particular build, I think it's actually quite good. All right, let's talk about the Vestige of Soul. This is something that I was really excited about, but I realized, honestly, it's not that good. So it's a light equipment chess piece. It has Blade Break and 1 defense, very similar to the Spring Tunic. And it says, whenever you pitch a light card, if a card has been put into your hero's soul this turn, gain a resource. And you're like, oh, wow. You can gain so many resources from this. It's so much better than Tunic. Well, you have to have put a card into your hero soul on that turn. And then you also have to pitch light cards. And so we're running mostly light cards, to be honest, but to be completely frank, we are not going to be putting a ton of stuff into our soul. We could. Like, this could be a good option, and I can see some plays where this card's good because we are running Luminaris, and Luminaris is going to give all of our stuff go again, basically. So being able to generate extra resources from pitching and all that kind of stuff could be pretty good. But honestly, at the end of the day, I don't think it's worth it. And I think just the assurance from the Spring Tunic, having that guaranteed resource whenever you need it, is better, honestly. It's just better, I think. Though, like I said, I can see arguments for Vestige of Soul, especially on turns where you have like really big turns and you're pitching a lot. But yeah, that's my stance on that. You can run it if you have it, especially if you don't have a Spring Tunic, and see how it goes. But I would recommend the Tunic if you have it. So let's talk about Luminaris, right? So this is our weapon of choice, and Luminaris is kind of what makes this deck really go. So this is a light illusionist weapon. This is a majestic card. It says, during your action phase, illusionist auras you control are weapons with 1 attack and once per turn action, a 0 cost attack. We won't be doing that a whole lot. This is not an aura type deck. This is an attack action big angels style deck. However, the second ability says, while there's a card with a yellow color strip in your pitch zone, illusionist attacks you control have go again. So, you know, those little auras have go again too, which is pretty cool. However, that means all of our big angels have go again, and we are running a ton, like 20 plus yellow strip, yellow pitch cards. And yeah, this is kind of like the genesis of the deck. Most of the time you're just going to be playing 1, but if you can play 2 big attacks in a turn, you're sitting pretty. It's really nice. It doesn't happen a lot because a lot of the cards have a high cost, and we'll talk about that too as we go. But it's still kind of like the linchpin of the deck. So we have that. And of course we have Prism. We'll go over Prism really quickly, but we won't actually be using her ability all that much. It says, once per turn instant for 2 resources, banish a card from her soul to create a Spectral Shield token. It could happen. It could totally happen. And a Spectral Shield token is just a token that sits around, and if you would take damage, the token is destroyed and you prevent 1 of that damage. Yeah, pretty simple. If we can create the tokens, then we can use them to attack with Luminaris. But to be completely honest, that's not something that we're going to be doing a lot. We do have some other uses for cards in Prism Soul. I have a card that I would like to call just like a payoff card. We have like a payoff card for cards that go into her soul, but we're not going to be focusing on that. We're going to be focusing on these, the big old angels. The big old angels. So let's talk about the big old angels. So we'll set this aside. We'll just kind of pull these one at a time. So this is the Herald of Air Edition. It's probably the best card in the entire deck. It's such a fantastic card. Most of the cards in this deck have yellow pitch, like I said. So this is a 2-cost card, 5 attack. It's a light illusionist attack action. It does have a defensive 3. It has Dominate, which is amazing. And if it hits, put it in your hero's soul and draw 2 cards. And then it has the Phantasm mechanic. Almost every single attack in this entire deck has that Phantasm mechanic. And what it says is if it's defended by a non-illusionist attack action card with 6 or more attack, destroy this and close the combat chain. And that is why the Phantasmal Footsteps is so good. The Footsteps and the Dreamweavers are so good. Footsteps, and Dreamweavers are so good. So yeah, we are running 2 Herald of Air Edition. This card is absolutely amazing, especially because we're going to be, you know, almost all of our attacks are going to have go again because of Luminaris, and being able to draw 2 additional cards is so good because most of the cards pitch for 2 and most of the cards cost 2 to play. So drawing two more cards basically gets you another free attack. So this card is absolutely amazing, like absolutely amazing. Always play this. Try not to defend with it or pitch with it. It's such a very, very good like linchpin card for the deck. Next up, we have Herald of Tenacity. This card is a strictly worse version of the Herald of Air Edition. So this card costs 2, 3 defense, 5 attack. It's literally the same thing. Dominate, and if it hits, put it into your hero's soul. It is literally the same thing as a Herald of Air Edition, except it doesn't draw you cards. It's like basically strictly worse. You could run the red pitch version that does 6 damage, or you could run the blue pitch version that does 4, but we are running the yellow because we really, really want the yellow. And it's still pretty good, right? It still has Dominate, so it's really hard to defend against. So still worth it. Still worth it in my opinion. Next up we have Herald of Judgment. Very beautiful card. I would say this is more of a situational card, but once again, it pitches for yellow, and that's what we want, right? So there's a 2-cost card, 6 attack, 3 defense. There's a Prism specialization. It says, if Herald of Judgment hits, put it into hero's soul, and the defending hero can't play cards from their banished zone until end of their next turn. So it kind of really hoses over Chain, specifically, and a little bit of Levia, but mostly Chain. But it's just a 2-cost card with 6 attack. And yeah, we can just give it a go again, which is super sweet with the Luminaris. Next up, we have the Herald of Protection. This is a, we can see the full card. This is a 2-cost card with 3 defense. You can see, you're seeing this a lot, right? 2-cost card, 6 attack, 3 defense. You see that a lot. Most of the cards have those kind of stat lines because they're all yellow pitch. And it says, if Herald of Protection hits, put it into Hero's Soul and create a Spectral Shield token. So this is one of the cases where we actually do get Spectral Shield tokens, in which case that we can use them to attack with our Luminaris. So that's not too bad. That's not too bad at all. But we're only running the yellow pitch version of this. Like I said, this is true for most of the cards in here. We're just running the yellow pitch version. This is a full Luminaris Angel deck. Next up, we have Herald of Triumph. Beautiful artwork by one of my personal favorite artists, Sam Yang. The card has a cost of 2, 6 attack once again, 3 defense. But this one has a little tricky. It says attack action cards have -1 attack while defending Herald of Triumph. So it's harder to pop that Phantasm. Did I say Triumph? Triumph. It's harder to pop that Phantasm. And if it hits, put it into your hero's soul. Like I said, all these cards that are going to be going into Prism Soul, we can use them with other cards. And I'll get to those in just a little bit, next up, we have Herald of Rebirth. I really like this card quite a bit. It's a 2-cost card with 6 attack, and if it hits, put it into your hero's soul and put up to 1 card with Phantasm from your graveyard on top of your deck. That's super sweet. So it lets you get some cards with Phantasm back. It also has Phantasm. Once again, all these cards have Phantasm. We're not going to go over that every single time, but really, really good card. Just able to get back our best Phantasm cards. Like the Herald of Erudition here. You're mostly going to pick the Herald of Erudition if you have it, or maybe Phantasmaclasm, and we'll get to that in just a moment. Next up, we have Herald of Ravages. Just a really good damaging one. 2-cost card, 6 attack. If it hits, put it into your hero's soul and deal 1 arcane damage to target hero. So pretty good. I also like the red version of this, but I took it out of the deck, to be honest, just to focus more on the yellow line and some other, other effects. All right, so those are mostly our 2-cost yellow pitch cards, right? This is like the bread and butter of the deck. Just a bunch of cards that have a yellow pitch, cost 2, and have a big attack. That's just kind of what we want to do, right? Now we're going to get into some really spicy stuff. And by spicy stuff, I mean cards that only cost 1 to play. And these cards are so good because if you have a yellow pitch card in your hand, you can easily play 2 of these because you can pitch a yellow pitch card with Luminaris, give a, go again, and then play 2 1-cost cards. So first up we have is the Tune Herald. I was initially running just the red and the yellow, mostly because I had foil copies of them all and no foil blues. However, I was just like, just put the blues in, man. They're so good. They're so good. So what does this card do? This is probably the most simple card we have in the deck. It's also one of the best cards we have. It is a 1-cost card with 7 attack, 3 defense, and if it hits, put it into your hero's soul. That's it. But 1 cost, 7 attack, amazing. 1 cost, 6 attack, still amazing. 1 cost, 5 attack is still really good. This is all really, really good. And the blue pitch, it does come up, right? It does come up sometimes, just having that blue pitch and being able to, generate more resources. But I mean, just imagine, man, this is like Magical Christmas Land, but just having these 3 in your hand, you can pitch the yellow, attack with this one, and then attack with this one. It's super good. And if you had a counter on your Fyendal Spring Tunic, if they somehow destroy your first Tune Herald, then you can use the Phantasmal Footsteps to gain your resource or to gain your action point back and to attack with this one. It's so good. It's so good. So yeah, that's what we're doing here. This card is fantastic. Really, really good. Next up is another 1-cost card, one of my favorite cards in the entire set in terms of artwork. I love this artwork. I already bought a print of this. You should go support the artist and buy prints of this. This one is gorgeous. So this is Spears of Surreality. This is a 1-cost card. It has Phantasm and Go Again. That's it. 1-cost card, blocks for 3. All of the attacks in this deck block for 3. Like I said, this deck blocks pretty well, and it has 5 attack. Just really good. We're running the reds and the yellows because yellows, once again, we got that yellow pitch. And also just a 1-cost 4 attack with Go Again is really, really good. And you probably noticed here this deck gets pretty hard countered by decks running a ton of 6 attack cards like Brute, in particular Brute and Guardian, but that's just kind of the name of the game with this style of deck. If you're not playing against one of those decks, oh man, this deck can totally cook off. So it gets really hard countered, but if you don't get hard countered, oh, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt so much. This deck does so well against other decks like Wizard. Next up, we have Phantasmaclasm. We're running 2 Phantasmaclasms. This card is the only 3-cost card in the deck, but it's an amazing card. So 3-cost card, 3 defense, 9 attack. It says, look at the defending hero's hand and then choose a card. They put it on the bottom of their deck, then draw a card. It's basically like Vendilion Clique, except you have to do it. You can't choose not to do it. It also has Phantasm, and it attacks for 9. So this card, once again, is a 3-cost card, and it's going to be a little bit hard to play just by itself because most of the cards in our deck have a have a yellow pitch. But if you have that yellow pitch and a resource from the Tunic, you can play this. Or if you have one of the few blue cards, you can do that as well. So Phantasmaclasm, fantastic card. I believe this should go in every single Illusionist deck. It is just that good. It is just that good. And then we have Celestial Cataclysm. So this is our big payoff for putting cards in our hero's soul. That's how I like to think about that. So we're not going to be really doing a lot of Spectral Token shenanigans. So our big payoff is Celestial Cataclysm. It's a 0-cost card. It is a light action attack with a 7 attack, 3 defense. It also pitches for yellow, which is very important. So if you can't play this for some reason, it still pitches for yellow, which goes really well with our theme. And it says, as an additional cost to play Celestial Cataclysm, banish 3 cards from your hero's soul, and it has Go Again. Oh my god, this card is so gross. It's so gross. It's just basically a free 7 attack. It's so good. And we're running 2 of them because, of course we are. It just synergizes with our deck so well. And then our final attack action in the deck is one that you've seen probably a lot. We have Command and Conquer. This is just a very simple card. 2-cost card, 6 attack, 3 defense. Defense reactions can't be played to Command and Conquer's Chain Link. If Command and Conquer hits a hero, destroy all cards in their arsenal. We are running 2 of them. It's just one of the best cards in the entire game. Most of our cards pitch for 2, so we can play this off of most of our cards. And we can also play this at the end of a chain, right? So since all of our other attacks are going to have Go Again, we can play this one after those cards have already gone off. especially something like Celestial Cataclysm, right? You can play the Celestial Cataclysm for nothing, and then pitch a yellow cost card and play your Command and Conquer. So yeah, really good, really good. And it also blocks other Illusionist attacks, which is one of the other weaknesses of this deck. We are not running a lot of non-Illusionist cards, so you know, this one helps us block other Illusionists, and it's just really good. This is also one of the most expensive cards in the deck, by the way. So in order to make this deck budget, you can cut cards like the Celestial Cataclysm, because it's also kind of expensive, Command and Conquer, and then maybe like the Tunic, and you know, you can cut some combination of these, whatever you have and don't have, and then the deck is actually pretty budget from there. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind, especially when Unlimited comes out. Hopefully stuff like this is a little more affordable for folks. All right, so let's start talking about some of our other cards. This one is one of the spiciest cards in the deck. It's Pummel. Pummel is a classic Flesh and Blood card. I run this in almost every deck that can. It is a 2-cost card, yellow pitch. Once again, yellow pitch. This one says target club or hammer weapon attack gains +3. We don't care about that. Target attack action card with 2 or greater gains +3, and if it hits a hero, they discard a card. That is amazing. It also defends for 2. But, I mean, it's a yellow pitch card, and it also pumps up and forces them to discard. So this card can be played on almost any card in our entire deck, but with few exceptions. It's just really good. Yeah, just absolutely fantastic. Next up, we have one of my favorite cards. It's Phantasmify. So this is a 1-cost card. It's an Illusionist action with a defensive 2. It has Go again. And it says, the next attack action card you play this turn is Illusionist in addition to its other class types, and gains +5 and Phantasm. Turning it into an Illusionist card is actually relevant because Luminaris gives Illusionist cards Go again if we have a yellow pitch card in our zone. So we could technically give Command and Conquer Go again if we wanted to. So you could play a Phantasmify into a Command and Conquer, and as long as you have a yellow pitch card in your pitch zone, it would have Go again. So that's pretty sweet. That really doesn't come up too much, but it's just something to know. And also something to know is that Dreamweavers, if you pop your Dreamweavers, it says that it loses and can't gain Phantasm. The next Illusionist attack action cards, once again, turns it into an Illusionist card. Turns Command and Conquer into an Illusionist card. And it also can't gain and loses Phantasm. So that's really good. You can pump up your Command and Conquer to absurd degrees. Actually absurd degrees. So yeah, that's really good. That's really good. So it gives it +5. So 1 cost +5 is amazing. We are running the reds. The yellow is 1 cost +4, also really good. And then the blue is 1 cost +3. Not as good, but we just needed more blues, and I thought this was a pretty good one. It only cost 1 to play. So we're running the full gambit of Phantasmifies. We just want to pump up our stuff as much as we can. And yeah, go to town. It's really sweet. I dig it. And the very final card in the deck is just a humble defense reaction, and it is Soul Shield. So Soul Shield is a 2-cost card with 6 defense. It's a defense reaction. It says, put Soul Shield into your hero's soul when the combat chain closes. So this card is one that I'm testing out for now. I'm not sure if it's going to stay in very long. I think it's a pretty good option, and it just really helps us play our Cataclysms. So yeah, I like it quite a bit. It also has 6 defense, which is pretty good. Kind of synergizes with a lot of the stuff that we're doing here. So we have just 2 defense reactions. I can definitely see you cutting these cards for something else. But you know, the fact that I have yellow pitch is super good, and it just kind of does everything that we want to do in this deck. And I can't state enough how good Tune Herald is in this deck. Getting the full 6 is really what you want to be doing. And like this deck just kind of, I don't want to say it's easy to play, but it's easy to play, right? You're just playing big angels. This is a very just aggro style deck. There's a little bit of trickery and shenanigans here, but most of the time, man, most of the time you're just like, I'm gonna play some big angels, I'm gonna pump them up, and I'm gonna swing, right? That's kind of what you want to do. You can have really big plays, like say you have, you know, 2 yellow pitch cards in your hand, and then these 2, you can take some damage on your opponent's turn, and you can come back for 14. It's so good. Come back for 14, and you can use your Dreamweavers there to make sure that it loses Phantasm. So there's some plays here where you can just kind of take some hits from your opponent and then just come back and absolutely slaughter them. This deck is all about big numbers, but it does, like I said, get countered pretty hard by certain decks. Like, it does get hard counters. This is not a deck that can, like, easily win against every deck, but it can win against a lot of decks, and even against, you know, decks like Brute that are running a lot of 6 attack cards. You still have your insurance policies. All right, and that was my Prism Big Angel Aggro deck. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of this particular version of the build. I would say it's like version 1.2 for me. It still has a lot of like iterations and stuff before I get it to a place where I, you know, would feel comfortable taking this to a tournament with prizes. But currently, I still think it's very good, and it's a very good starting off point for a deck like this. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Don't forget to check out my Patreon if you'd like to support me directly, or just stay tuned for some more Flesh and Blood content coming in the pipelines. Have a good one all, and I'll see you later.